She couldn't find a good job after graduation, and her mother's illness weighed heavily on her shoulders. Yet despite her struggles, she still helped a stranger who had no money for transport. What she didn't know was that this small act of kindness would become the key to a future she never imagined. Who was this man, and why had their paths crossed? Get ready as we take you through a powerful and emotional story. Mark Eric came from one of the most influential families in Lagos. Their name alone opened doors. They owned Eric's Real Estate Limited, a company known across the city for its vast empire of land, houses, and skyscrapers. Mark, however, was different from what people assumed. Though born into privilege, he had a quiet nature and a simple heart. But beneath that calm surface was a storm of expectations. Everyone expected him to continue the legacy. Everyone watched him. But deep inside, Mark felt empty. He wanted something more, something real, something he could call his own. No one saw this part of him. To the world, he was just the heir to a fortune. One Saturday morning, his father, Mr. Paul Eric, sat in their spacious living room, deep in thought. Tall and commanding, with silver strands in his hair, Paul had built the family empire from nothing. His success echoed through the city, but that morning, his expression was tense. "Eunice, where's Mark?" he asked his wife. "We need to talk to him. We can't delay this anymore." Mrs. Eunice, soft-spoken and gentle, looked at her husband and sighed. "He's in his room resting. Should I go call him?" "Yes, please. Today is important," Paul replied. "The future of the company is at stake." Eunice climbed the stairs and knocked softly on Mark's door. "Your father wants to see you," she said. "Please come downstairs." Mark opened the door slowly. His expression was calm, but inside, a storm brewed. "I'm coming," he said quietly. Step by step, he descended the staircase. His parents sat waiting, serious and hopeful. Paul gestured toward the chair opposite. "Sit, son. We have something important to discuss." Mark sat down, his fingers interlocked, eyes focused but mind spinning. "What's going on?" he asked gently. His parents exchanged glances. Paul leaned forward. "Your mother and I are not getting any younger. It's time for you to take over Eric's real estate. It's your destiny, Mark." Mark's heartbeat quickened. "CEO? Me?" Paul smiled with pride. "Yes, son. This is your legacy." Mark took a breath. "Dad, Mom, I'm grateful for everything. But I don't think this is my path. I want to choose for myself." Paul's face stiffened. His voice dropped but remained firm. "Your path? Did you build this company? Everything you have came from us, and now you want to walk away? Is that how you repay us?" "I'll think about it," Mark said quietly. "But I want you to understand. I'm not sure this is what I want." The room fell into silence. Paul's hands clenched the arms of his chair. Eunice sat quietly, her hands together in her lap. A choice had been placed before them, one that would shift everything. Mark stayed in his room for hours. The walls felt heavy, the silence louder than usual. His thoughts were restless. "Should I follow their dream or mine?" he whispered. "I want to sing. I want to make people smile with my music, not manage properties." He turned off the lights, staring at the ceiling. Each passing night made the weight heavier. What if I disappoint them? What if I hurt them? But what if I betray myself? He buried his face into his pillow. "I'm sorry, But I need to be honest about what I want. Days later, Paul called him back. His voice carried the weight of finality. Mark, we cannot delay anymore. You need to decide. Mark walked down slowly. His legs felt weak, but his mind was firm. His father's face was stern. His mother, seated beside him, looked nervous. We've given you everything, Paul began. A future, a name, a place. Why are you turning away from it all? Mark folded his hands, voice steady. I appreciate what you've done. But I want a different life. I want to pursue music. Paul's face turned red. Music? Are you insane? You're throwing away a fortune, a legacy. Over what? Songs. His voice rose. If you walk away, I'll freeze your account. No cars, no support. Think very carefully. This is your last chance. Tears welled in Eunice's eyes. Please, Mark. Listen to him. Mark stood slowly. I'm sorry. I've made my choice. I won't be your CEO. Without another word, he turned and left. The mansion faded behind him as he stepped into the noise and chaos of the city. He boarded a yellow bus with only the clothes he wore and the weight of his choice. Across town, Margaret sat in her tiny room. Her degree in business hadn't brought her work, and now her mother's illness made things worse. There was barely any food left. Rent was overdue. Her father had passed years ago, and her mother was all she had left. She knelt beside her mother, her voice trembling. Please, Mama. Hold on. I'm trying. I promise I'll find a way. Her mother opened her tired eyes. Don't cry. You're strong. I believe in you. Margaret held back her tears. I won't fail you. I'll do whatever it takes to get you help. That night, as rain tapped the roof, Margaret sat quietly, her heart filled with fear and hope. The next morning, she rose early, said a small prayer, and dressed in her best clothes. She stepped out into the city, CV in hand, moving from office to office, her heart begging for just one chance. She went from place to place, asking with humility, her voice soft but determined. As the clouds thickened above her, Margaret grew anxious. What if the day ended with nothing? What if there was still no way to pay for her mother's treatment? Her steps became heavier, and her stomach growled from hunger. Just as she turned into a crowded street, something caught her attention. A notice board outside a modest restaurant. The sign read, Cleaner Wanted, Apply in Person. Margaret folded her hands briefly in gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. I'll take anything. I'm not ashamed. I just want to help Mama. She stepped inside and approached the manager with quiet confidence. Good afternoon, sir. I saw the sign outside. I'm looking for work. I can clean, and I'll work very hard. The manager observed her silently for a moment, then gave a small nod. Start tomorrow. We pay weekly. Relief and gratitude washed over her face. Thank you so much, sir. I promise I won't disappoint you. As she walked back home, her heart felt heavy but hopeful. She may have become a cleaner, but she knew her worth. She was not begging. She was fighting for her mother's life, and that gave her strength. In another part of the city, Mark sat alone in a lounge, sipping quietly. His bank accounts were frozen. The cars were locked away. His parents had made sure of that. So now, he walked through the city like everyone else, hoping the noise would drown out his thoughts. Each day he left early and returned late, lost in questions about his future. He felt misunderstood, forced into a life he didn't want, while his heart longed for something more, something that would give his life real meaning. That evening, after hours of thinking, Mark stepped out of the lounge and began walking toward the bus stop. The sky had darkened, the city buzzing with motion. His thoughts were so loud he didn't notice the stranger who bumped into him. The man apologized softly and walked away. Mark barely acknowledged him, unaware that his wallet had just been stolen. At the same time, Margaret finished her shift. She stepped out of the restaurant with her handbag, heading toward the same bus stop. Her mind was lost in thoughts of her mother and the rent. She had no idea fate was about to bring someone back into her life. When Mark reached the bus stop and reached into his pocket, his heart dropped. The wallet was gone. His eyes widened in disbelief. He searched frantically, turning out every pocket. "Where's my wallet?" he muttered in panic. He ran back to the lounge, asking the staff if they'd seen it. No one had. Defeated, he returned to the stop. Another bus had just arrived. Desperate, he approached the driver. "Please, I lost my wallet. I just need to get home. Can I ride without paying?" The driver barely looked at him. "No money, no ride. This is a business, not charity," he said and turned away. Inside the bus, Margaret sat by the window, quietly watching the street. She noticed a young man pleading with the driver. Something about his voice touched her. Though she didn't have much herself, something in her stirred, a quiet voice saying, "Help him." Without hesitation, she stepped up to the driver. "Wait. I'll pay for him." The driver looked at her. "Are you sure? He's a stranger." "Yes," she said simply. "Please let him in." She opened her small purse and handed over just enough money. The driver shrugged and waved Mark inside. Mark stared in shock, grateful beyond words. "Thank you. Truly thank you. You're incredibly kind." He took the seat near her. Neither of them spoke much at first, but something had begun, something that would not end at that bus stop. Mark turned to her, smiling gently. "Thank you again. May God bless you." Margaret gave a quiet nod. "It's okay. I'm glad I could help." "My name is Mark," he said after a pause. "I'm Margaret," she replied softly. Mark hesitated, then asked, "Can I have your number?" She clutched her bag tighter, unsure if she should trust him. But something about his tone felt genuine. After a moment's thought, she nodded. "All right." He carefully saved her number. As he did, he noticed her uniform. Simple, a cleaner's attire. Yet she had helped him without hesitation. That kindness touched something deep within him. That night, back in his room, Mark couldn't stop thinking about her. Why would someone with so little still choose to help? He whispered to himself. Her gesture had left a lasting impression. The next morning, determined to know more, he called David, a trusted friend and investigator. "David, I need your help. Can you find out more about someone for me? Her name is Margaret. I'll send her number. I want to know who she is." David listened carefully. "All right, I'll look into it." Mark waited anxiously for days. When David finally called, Mark gripped his phone tightly. "What did you find?" David's voice was calm. "She's genuine, Mark. A business graduate. Struggled to find work. She's working as a cleaner now. Her mother is sick. But she's kind, everyone who knows her says the same." Mark didn't speak for a moment. His heart felt full. "Thank you, David. I needed to know. That night, lying in bed, Mark whispered, Margaret, I don't know what it is, but I want to do something. I want to help. Days later, he visited her workplace. He didn't tell her who he was. He just wanted to see her again, as himself. She was cleaning tables when he walked in. Their eyes met, but she couldn't quite place him. He sat quietly, ordered food, and left without a word. That evening, as she walked toward the bus stop, she heard someone call her name. She turned. It was him, standing under the streetlight. I remember you now, she said with a small laugh. You're the guy from the bus. Mark smiled. And I've come to return the favor. They walked together, side by side, and talked as if they'd known each other longer than a moment on a bus. The city around them faded as they laughed and shared stories. A friendship had begun, one that neither of them could have expected. Mark started visiting the restaurant often, always during her closing hour. He would sit in a quiet corner, waiting with a small drink until she was done. At first, their conversations were light, about the menu, the city, the weather. But with each passing day, the space between them grew smaller. Their walks after work became longer. Their laughs louder. Something beautiful was quietly taking root. One night, as Mark returned home, Mrs. Eunice waited in the living room, worried. When he finally arrived, she knocked on his door gently. Can I come in? He nodded and opened the door. She sat beside him. Mark, I know we were hard on you. Freezing your account, locking up the cars. We thought it would help. We just wanted you to take responsibility. Everything we built was for you. I understand, Mom. But I need space to find my own path. She squeezed his hand. Then I'll talk to your father. I'll ask him to give you back access. We believe in you. We just want you to be happy and wise. Mark smiled, feeling the weight ease slightly. Thank you, Mom. Rest, my son. Tomorrow is a new day. The next evening, Mark and Margaret stopped by a small wine bar. As they clinked glasses, he said, To us. To our friendship. She smiled. To us. He stood and excused himself to the restroom, leaving his phone on the table. While he was away, the screen lit up. A message appeared from someone saved as Mom. Margaret glanced at the message. It read, Son, I've spoken to your father. He's decided to reactivate your account and let you use the car starting tomorrow. Her eyes widened. Her hand froze. Her heart began to race. She whispered softly to herself, Mark, is he really wealthy? Was he hiding something from me all this time? A quiet sadness mixed with confusion filled her heart. Was their connection genuine, or just a mask he wore? When Mark returned to the table and sat down, he noticed the change in her expression. Margaret, are you okay? Did I say something wrong? He asked gently. She forced a small smile. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But inside, her heart wrestled with unspoken doubts. That evening, when Margaret reached home, she looked exhausted and distant. She placed her bag on the table and sat in silence, her eyes heavy with thought. Her mother, Janet, who had been steadily recovering thanks to the medicine Margaret was now able to buy, noticed her daughter's mood and stopped folding clothes. Margaret, my dear, she said kindly, you look troubled. What's wrong? Did something happen? Margaret looked at her mother, fighting back the urge to cry. Mama, the young man I've been telling you about. Mark, I found out something today. Janet sat beside her. "What is it, my child?" I saw a message on his phone. His mother wrote to him. She said his father had allowed him access to his account again and that he could use their cars from tomorrow. Margaret sighed. "It means he's rich, Mama. From a powerful family. And he never told me. I feel like he wasn't honest." Janet took her hand and spoke softly. "Sometimes people hide parts of themselves not to deceive, but to protect their hearts. Maybe he feared judgment. Maybe he just wanted to be seen for who he really is, not his wealth." Margaret hesitated. "But Mama, what if he was just toying with my emotions?" Janet smiled warmly. "Don't be quick to doubt him. Let time show you the truth. A sincere heart like yours will always find its way." Margaret nodded, trying to find peace in her mother's words. Still, the uncertainty remained. The next morning, the sky was clear and peaceful. Mark hadn't slept well. He had spent the whole night thinking. He knew he needed to come clean. Completely. So he picked up his phone and sent a message. "Hi, Margaret. Can we have lunch today? I really want to talk to you about something important." Margaret responded a few minutes later. "All right. Where should I meet you?" They agreed to meet at a quiet restaurant not far from where Margaret lived. By noon, Margaret arrived, dressed simply and modestly, her bag slung over her shoulder. Mark was already seated by the window. She greeted him quietly and joined him at the table. After ordering food and sharing a little light conversation, Mark took a deep breath. "Margaret, there's something I need to confess. Something I should have told you from the start." She looked at him attentively, her heart quietly racing. "I'm not just an ordinary guy," he began. "I'm the only son of Mr. Paul Eric, the real estate mogul." Margaret's eyes widened. "Wait, Paul Eric? The man who owns half the city?" she asked in shock. Mark nodded slowly. "Yes, that's my father." Her voice dropped. "But you've been using public buses. You dress so simply. Why hide it?" He sighed. "Because I wanted to live like a regular person. I was tired of people treating me differently just because of my family's name. I wanted genuine connections." She said nothing at first. Then Mark added, "My parents wanted me to take over the family company. That's why they cut me off. But I needed time, to breathe, to figure out what I wanted. That's how I met you." Margaret gently rested her hand on the table. "You should have told me." Mark looked surprised. "Wait. How did you find out?" She hesitated, then admitted, "That day at the wine bar. Your phone was on the table. A message popped up from your mom. I saw it without meaning to." Mark's expression softened. "So that's why you seemed distant that evening." Margaret nodded slowly. "I didn't know how to feel. I was confused." "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You showed me kindness when I had nothing to offer. I didn't want that to change." There was a long silence between them before Margaret finally said, "Thank you for telling me the truth. I'm still processing all this, but I appreciate your honesty." They sat for a while, quietly sipping their drinks, the air around them still but thoughtful. Then Margaret leaned forward. "Mark," she said, her tone sincere, "can I share something?" "Of course," he replied. "I know you love music. I can see how your face lights up when you talk about it," she began. "But I've been thinking, what if you didn't have to choose between your dream and your family's legacy?" Mark looked puzzled. "You mean do both?" "Yes," Margaret nodded. You can lead the company and still build your music dream. Start a record label, hire talented people, support young musicians. You'll still be part of the music world, but not just as a singer. As someone who opens doors for others. Mark leaned back in his seat, her words sinking in. That's actually a brilliant idea. She smiled. You just have to believe in yourself. He looked at her closely, deeply moved. Margaret, you're incredible. I didn't just meet a friend. I met someone who sees the best in me. Their smiles met across the table. Something deeper had begun to take shape. That evening, Mark walked into the house humming, his steps light. Mr. Paul and Mrs. Eunice looked up from the living room and exchanged glances. Look at him, Eunice whispered, surprised. He hasn't looked this cheerful in weeks. Something's definitely changed, Paul added. Mark greeted them warmly, then dashed upstairs. Minutes later, he came back down, refreshed and smiling. Dad, Mom, he began. I've made a decision. Paul leaned forward. About what? I want to accept the CEO role, Mark said clearly. I'm ready to lead. They were both stunned. Are you serious? Paul asked. Yes, Mark nodded. I've thought deeply about it. I know now I can follow my passion and protect what you've built. What made you change your mind? Eunice asked, rising from her seat. Mark smiled. A friend helped me see things differently. Paul raised an eyebrow. Who is this wise friend? Bring him home. We need to thank him. Mark chuckled. Not him, her. Eunice gasped lightly. It's a woman? She's special, Mark replied. Kind, honest, and real. I'll bring her to meet you soon. They both smiled, a rare peace returning to the room. A few days later, Mark picked Margaret up after work. As she settled into the car, he turned to her gently. I told them everything, that you were the one who helped me see clearly. She looked at him, unsure. And what did they say? They were happy. Especially my mom, Mark said, laughing. In fact, they want to meet you. Margaret looked away nervously. Meet me? Yes, he replied. They said anyone who could change my mind must be someone special. She hesitated. I don't know, Mark. He reached out, held her hand. Please. Just this once. Let them meet the girl who helped their son find his way. After a moment, she smiled. All right. I'll come. On Saturday afternoon, Margaret wore her best dress. Simple but elegant. She checked herself in the mirror, took a steady breath, and stepped out. When she arrived at Mark's house, Mr. Paul and Mrs. Eunice were already waiting in the living room. As Margaret walked in, they stood up with warm smiles. You're very welcome, dear, Mr. Paul said. Thank you, sir, Margaret replied politely. Mrs. Eunice stepped forward and embraced her gently. We're so happy to finally meet you, Margaret. They all sat down together. After a little conversation, Mr. Paul asked, Tell us about your parents, dear. Margaret spoke softly. My father passed away a few years ago. My mother, Janet, is alive, and recently started working again. Oh, I'm sorry about your father, Mrs. Eunice said, reaching for her hand kindly. Thank you, Ma, Margaret responded. And just like that, a new chapter quietly began. The housekeeper entered quietly and set the table for lunch. It was a beautiful spread. Pounded yam with rich vegetable soup, jollof rice, crispy fried plantains, juicy chicken, and fresh fruit juice. They all ate together, laughing like one big happy family. After the meal, Mr. Paul cleared his throat. "Margaret," he began warmly, "I've heard you graduated with excellent results in business administration." Margaret nodded shyly. "Yes, sir." He smiled. "My wife and I have discussed something important, and we've come to a decision. We want you to join our company." Margaret's eyes widened in surprise. "You'll work closely with our son," he continued, "as the Chief Operating Officer. We believe you have the mind, heart, and wisdom for the role." Slowly, Margaret rose to her feet. Tears welled up in her eyes as she fell to her knees, overwhelmed. "Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ma. I don't even know what to say." Mrs. Eunice quickly stood and lifted her gently. "You deserve it, my dear. You've earned it," Mr. Paul added, "and the job comes with a fully furnished home and an official car." Margaret held her hand to her chest, tears slipping down her face. "Thank you so much. God bless you, sir." "God bless you, Ma." Mark stepped beside her, smiling proudly. "Thank you, Dad." "Thank you, Mom." As everyone settled back, Mrs. Eunice leaned close to Mark and whispered softly, "This girl, she's special. I would love to have her as a daughter-in-law." Mark gave a small smile, but in his heart, joy rang loudly. That evening as Mark drove Margaret home, the car was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet filled with peace. He glanced at her and smiled. "I'd love to meet your mom before I go." Margaret turned to him surprised. "You mean it?" "Of course," he replied. "You've told me so much about her. I think it's time I met her properly." Margaret's face lit up with happiness. "She'll be so thrilled." When they arrived at her house, Mark parked near the entrance. Before he could step out, Margaret had already opened her door and jumped out with excitement. "Mama! Mama!" she called joyfully. Inside the house, Janet rushed out, startled. "Margaret! What is it? Why are you shouting like this?" Margaret ran into her arms, crying, but these were tears of joy. "Mama! God has done it. He's remembered us." Janet held her, still trying to make sense of the moment. "My child talked to me. What happened?" Still smiling, Margaret pulled back and took her mother's hand. "I'll explain everything soon. But first, I want you to meet someone very important." Mark had stepped out of the car and waited quietly nearby. Margaret walked her mother toward him. "Mama, this is the friend I told you about." Mark bowed respectfully. "Good evening, Ma." Janet smiled at him, warmth in her eyes. "My son, how are you?" "I'm fine, Ma. It's truly an honor to meet you." She took his hand. "I've heard so much about you. Thank you for being a good friend to my daughter." "God bless you." Mark smiled, grateful. "Thank you, Ma." For a moment, the three stood in silence, the golden evening breeze dancing around them. Everything felt still, safe, and right. Janet turned to her daughter. "Now come inside and tell me everything." "I want to hear every word." Mark laughed. "I'll leave you two to talk. But I'll be back soon, Ma." "Please do," Janet replied. "My door is always open to you." Margaret walked him to the car. As he got in, she leaned on the window. "Thank you for everything." He touched her hand gently. "This is only the beginning." As he drove off, she stood there smiling, her heart full, because light had finally entered their home. 5 months passed. Everything had changed. Mark was now the CEO of his father's company. He wore fine suits, held board meetings, and made bold decisions with confidence and clarity. But he wasn't doing it alone. Margaret stood beside him every day as the chief operating officer. She handled operations, led staff meetings, and made sure everything ran smoothly. Together they transformed the company. Mr. Paul and Mrs. Eunice were filled with pride. Everyone spoke about how talented and hardworking they both were. Margaret's personal life had also taken a beautiful turn. She and her mother had moved into the house that came with her new job, a calm and peaceful place. For the first time in years, they didn't have to worry about rent or bills. She now owned her own car, a shiny blue one that she drove to work each morning with a smile. Their families had grown close. Janet often visited Mark's parents, and laughter now echoed in both homes. But one Saturday afternoon, something unexpected happened. Mark finished early from work. As he packed up, he told Margaret, "My mom just called. She says she needs me at home." Margaret looked up. "Is everything all right?" He shrugged. She didn't say much, but she sounded serious. "All right," she nodded. "Take care." Not long after he left, Margaret's phone rang. It was Mrs. Eunice. "My dear," she said sweetly, "can you please come to the house after work? It's important." Margaret's brow creased. "Ma, is everything okay?" "Yes, nothing is wrong. I just want to see you. Please come." As the call ended, Margaret's heart started racing. Why did she call me too? What could be so important? All evening, her mind spun with thoughts. She could hardly concentrate. When it was time, she got dressed neatly and drove to the house. She stood at the door, took a deep breath, and rang the bell. A voice from inside said, "Come in." She opened the door and froze. There, in the middle of the living room, stood her mother, Janet. Mr. Paul smiled warmly from one side. Mrs. Eunice stood proudly beside him. Two of Mark's closest friends held up phones, recording. And there in the center of the room was Mark, down on one knee, holding out a ring. He looked straight into her eyes. "Margaret, you changed my life. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Will you marry me?" For a second, the room fell silent. Then voices rose together. "Say yes. Say yes." Tears poured from Margaret's eyes. She covered her mouth, shaking. Her voice failed her, but she nodded slowly. Once, then again. "Yes. Yes, Mark. I will." Cheers erupted. Mark gently slid the ring on her finger and pulled her into his arms. They embraced tightly. Janet wept joyful tears. Mrs. Eunice wiped her eyes with a smile. Mr. Paul clapped loudly, and Mark's friends cheered and recorded the moment. It was a day no one would ever forget. Two families had become one. And the love that had started from a simple act of kindness had grown into something rare and beautiful. This story reminds us of something powerful. Never look down on anyone. The person you help today might be the one God uses to transform your life tomorrow. Blessings often come through people we least expect. So always be humble. Always be kind. Now I'd love to hear from you. What lesson did you take from this story? Which moment touched your heart the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And guess what? Another powerful story is coming your way very soon. You won't want to miss it. So please, subscribe to the channel now and turn on your notification bell so you're the first to know when it drops. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button and share it with your friends. Let's keep spreading the message together. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in what God can do.